Hi everyone, welcome back to Go Local Live. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday afternoon. Want to thank John Kazmarski with Efficient Capital Strategies here in Providence on the eve of the Federal Reserve about to make some major announcements tomorrow, what he projects moving forward. Want to get a lot more local here. Want to talk with Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Thank you for coming in today.
Great to be back, Kate.
I appreciate your coming back. It was a very timely pitch to want to come back into the studio to talk about something that the center has pushed for here in this General Assembly session. As Go Local and others have written about, ours was called that Retail Armageddon, what we're seeing
Yep.
with the closure of a number of retail establishments locally and across the country. The center has been advocating not for legislation, for following the letter of a law that has been enacted. This has to do with that remote sales tax, the internet sales tax, that when enacted was at 7%, but in the law said at some point in time was going to go back to 6.5, which it doesn't look like there's any appetite in the state to do as required by law. Republican lawmaker Representative Nardone came on Go Local Live at the State House last week to talk about this. Let's talk about the center looking at this, just one particular piece of sales tax red tape that was already anticipated, that says, look, we can't keep it at the 7% forever. We shouldn't keep it at the 7% forever.
Well, it's not a question of just keeping it there. The promise that was made to the people of Rhode Island back 5, 6, 7 years ago was that if we do an internet tax, which is broadening the tax, that, okay, then we should give consumers and shoppers a break and lower the tax, right? So we're going to get more money because there's going to be more things being taxed, so let's lower the rate. Makes sense. Before I get back to this, I want to go back to 1990, DEPCO. And we had to pay back all those faulty loans to the banks. We raised the sales tax from 6% to 7% with the promise that we drop it back to 6.5 once we paid off the loan. Guess what?
DEPCO 2.0?
The loan got paid off and we're still at 7%. So again, for the second time now, there's been a promise made to the people of Rhode Island to lower the sales tax. Now this one is predicated on a technicality that there must be a federal law that requires states or allows states to collect, to require remote sellers to collect and remit sales taxes. There hasn't been a federal law passed, but there has been a federal court case just last summer, the Wayfair case, that said states are free to collect sales taxes from internet and other remote providers. So in the last 4 or 5 years, the sales tax has gone up $200–300 million. So we have clearly broadened the sales tax. Only a little piece of that is due to inflation or GDP growth. Most of it is because we have broadened the sales tax. We are collecting internet taxes from Amazon. We are collecting internet taxes or software as a service taxes that you download from the internet. We have broadened the sales tax. It is time to implement the law, which this debate already happened, don't forget. And either the speaker put it in his budget, the governor could have put it in her budget. Rep. Nardone is kind of calling for it in his legislation. We even have lawyers looking at a lawsuit. But one way or another, it's time to give the people of Rhode Island a tax cut and honor your promise.
And as there just not that political will, would you say, especially when we're dealing with the budgetary issues that we are, even though, again, going back to DEPCO, going back to several years ago when the remote sales tax was first looked at, but just that, oh, well, we have it and we're in a precarious financial position, we need it. You've heard this before.
Yeah, the problem we have in this state is that the budget is the golden goose. Nobody will touch the budget because there's so many politically correct special interests in that budget. And it's the budget that's killing our state, yet it's the budget that everybody wants to preserve and expand. So obviously cutting the sales tax, hey, listen, we've shown it's only going to cost about $18 million. It's going to create over 1,000 jobs. Don't forget, even though it might be about $80 million off the top, the extra business, believe it or not, that's called dynamic effect. You know, there is an effect when you lower sales taxes or rates, people will buy more. It's the way it works. It's the law of economics, and it works with taxes. So it has a very little budget impact. But there's so, I got to tell you, I won't mention a name, but I was told by one highly placed member of House leadership when I brought this up privately. Well, if you guys would only elect a governor we could work with, as if we don't get involved in politics. I had to tell them that. But anyway, the point being is, hey, even if it's the General Assembly that passed the law and we want to implement it, we got a governor who will veto it. So listen, I think a court case may be the only way here. We're checking into the viability of that right now. But clearly, again, a promise made should be a promise kept.
Do you think something like that would help? And as you know, we look at the retail landscape, it's not just Rhode Island, but it's the rest of the country. The center has always been a staunch advocate for lowering the sales tax. You've looked at 0. You've said perhaps even 3 would be something that could stimulate the economy. Will there ever be a point in time where this is a broader conversation as we look at a severe impact to the industry, as we're seeing very quickly here at the start of 2019?
Only if we elect new people. There's just no interest in giving back money to the people who give it to the state in the first place. Listen, we picked the sales tax because we understand in a blue state like Rhode Island, an income tax, which would also stimulate growth, or a major cut to the corporate tax, would never fly because of the tax the rich mentality that seems to prevail up at the State House. The sales tax is a more sympathetic tax. It's a regressive tax. Poor people pay a higher percentage of their income towards the sales tax than do wealthier people. So the sales tax really hurts low-income families more than it hurts everyone else. So we think at least theoretically we have a chance. But I got to tell you, the obstinance up there to preserving every dime in that budget is amazing. They don't see that it's the budget that's killing our state. So sales tax reforms and other reforms that we think, like a estate tax, we actually think the estate tax might have a chance to have its threshold raised this year. We'll see on that. We're working on that one too.
Working behind the scenes.
We got to keep investors in our state. I mean, how are we going to create jobs if we don't have people to invest in companies?
That has clearly been pointed out this session, and as well as previous ones as well. But again, really on the heels of seeing all this reporting, again, of this retail Armageddon, if you will, the center said, again, take a look at what we have put forth as a potential option to address the needs of Rhode Islanders. And as you said, was already written into the legislation and the law as enacted for remote sales tax to go from 7 to 6.5%. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We'll provide a link. Representative Nardone again joined us at the State House last week to talk about this, but really the impetus really from the center is what was the driving force behind having legislators revisit this.
Yeah, and again, we appreciate the bill that Rep. Nardone put in, but we think the existing law as it stands now triggers that sales tax cut, and we just hope, we're trying to educate lawmakers. Again, the federal example should show us the way. We've cut taxes federally, we cut regulations federally, and we've got the best jobs numbers we have seen in decades, if tens of decades, and we've got income rising. It's the way to go if we want to turn things around in the state, and someday we hope we'll find somebody in a position of power who will listen closely to us.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come here in the studio as always, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to talk with you soon. Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Don't go back. We're going to go from news and politics to health and nonprofits and Bloody Marys here in
Can I stay for that?
Go Local Live. You might want to stick around. Don't go